my housekeeping mentions, and from now everything is going to be recorded and for eternity. Pierre. Should I introduce Pierre? For those who have never heard about him, Pierre Meunier is one of our masterminds when it comes to open access, especially in the humanities and social sciences, but he has extended his scope to Diamond open access in a more broader sense, open science, and he is based in France. And the floor is yours, Pierre.
Thank you very much, Margot. So welcome to everyone for this third instance of the cross-project webinar. I won't be long because I think, Margot, you have said almost everything I had to say. So, but I'd like to maybe add some additional information for you more in detail about the program of this webinar. So as Margot told you, there will be presentations of the latest developments from the three projects. What is quite interesting is that those three projects, they have reached a level of maturity in terms of the course of action of the three projects. So as you said, Margot, Palomera is almost at the end of its course, but DIAMAS and CraftOE have reached beyond their midpoint, if I'm correct. And there were a lot of development. So it's interesting to see those three projects being very mature in delivering their outputs. And more particularly, the outputs that will be discussed and presented to you today are for Palomera about the policy recommendations that were delivered recently from the project. For CraftOE, so that will be Ursula who will present the policy recommendations from the Palomera project. From CraftOE, we have with us Leonidas from OpenAIRE. Welcome, Leonidas, to present the publisher dashboard that OpenAIRE developed in the context of the CraftOE project. That's quite an interesting development to know of. And for the DIAMAS project, we will have Sona, who is with us to present the latest deliverable submitted to the European Commission, which is also an important output of the project. And that's the tool suite and the guidelines that were developed to help diamond publishers improve their quality and move forward. So I'm really looking forward to have these presentations and have also the discussions coming and from you all in the Q&A sections after each presentation. And with that, it's the end of my introduction. So back to you, Margot.
So our first speaker then will be Ursula. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Margot and Pierre, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I'm just going to share my screen. Give me just a moment, and if I can get a confirmation that I'm in presentation mode. Okay, perfect. So once again, thank you everyone. And for those of you who might not know a lot about Palomera, I'm going to give you just a very brief overview before we dive into the relevant outputs we want to discuss today. So Palomera is a project dedicated to policy alignment of open access monographs in the European research area. And as the project community manager hosted by Operas, I work on this project together with some of the other partners that are present here today and that you might hear from later on during the Q&A. In a nutshell, the purpose of Palomera is to understand why so few open access funder policies include books and to provide actionable recommendations to change this. We are a 2-year project, so as it was already anticipated, we are coming to an end of our 2nd year, so we will close our project at the end of December this year. We are funded by the European Union under Horizon, and the project is co-led together by Operas and OEPN with altogether 16 project partners across Europe. You can read more information about the project itself if you're interested in more details on our pages, but just to give you an idea of the general objective, which breaks into 5 sub-objectives. So the general objective, as I said, is to speed up the transition to open access for books. And this is then divided into sub-objectives. One of them is something that I will mention today, which is the knowledge base that includes the qualitative and quantitative data on the open access policy landscape in Europe. The second one is to understand challenges preventing research funding and performing organizations from developing and aligning on policies for open access books. Then we have the objective on engaging relevant stakeholders in the validation of the collected data and analysis in order to form the recommendations. And I will talk a little bit about that later as well. And we also have the objective of helping research funding and research performing organizations develop policies and strategies that will advance the transition to open access books. And finally, we also had the objective of learning from and sharing experiences with research funding organizations outside of Europe as well. So today what we will, Today what we will focus on is the recommendations, as that is a very final and almost very final and very important output of this project that we just developed and shared last week when we had our Palomera conference. So the recommendations for open access books, first of all, we want to clarify, and we also clarify this in our booklet for the recommendation, is that what we mean by open access books. Within our scope of work, we see open access books as scholarly peer-reviewed books, including monographs, book chapters, edited collections, critical editions, and other long-form scholarly works. We do not include textbooks or popular science books because they're out of scope and it's beyond the remit of the Palomera project. One of the things that is also important to note is that stakeholder engagement events showed that there is a lack of policy alignment between stakeholders. And this is at the very core of why we wanted to have this project and why it is important. The alignment across stakeholders allows for complementary open access academic policies and helps progressing open access for books. So we need to have practical structural recommendations that distinguish between general recommendations and stakeholder-specific ones as well, exactly for that reason. What has come up from the different conversation was that the recommendations for open access books within this project should be evidence-based, they should align across stakeholders, they should be actionable, and it's also important to give the stakeholders short, medium, and long-term timeline for these recommendations. And this is all part of the report that you will have access to very soon. The reason why we say evidence-based is because we spent a very good amount of the project, nearly the entirety of the first year, to collect the data that was the foundation for drafting the recommendations after it has been analyzed as well. And we already have the knowledge base collecting more than 600 policies and policy-related documents of more than or almost 40 European research area countries. It also contains over 40 anonymized interviews with stakeholders from across the area, and policy research articles or reports have also been used in this analysis that are not necessarily part in the knowledge base because of copyright issues, but that helped as well in drafting the recommendations. So this was all part of the methodology. We collected the data first, we analyzed the data, and then we formed the recommendations. So the overview is now available on our pages. You can look at it through the QR code here or by going to this link. We will share the slides as well, so you will have this at hand. We will have the full report added to the Palomera Zenodo community soon as well and shared also. The important thing to note, and I will give you a sneak peek into the recommendation themselves, but before we do that, I just want to give you a heads up on how the document has been structured. So as we mentioned before, we want to make sure there is alignment between the different stakeholders and that these recommendations help in that for that purpose as well. So we have 3 levels of recommendations. The first level is the general recommendations that apply to all. Then we have the common recommendations for research funding organizations, research performing organizations, and national policymakers. And then we dive into stakeholder-specific recommendations, which will include some of the already mentioned stakeholders, but also libraries, researchers, scholarly societies, open infrastructure providers, and publishers. So altogether, we have 8 different stakeholder types as well. And as I said, you will be able to dive into the details of each of these in the document here and also in the report. So here is a sneak peek into, for example, the general recommendations. They address open access books and they talk about how, on a general level, what needs to be done, what we think should be done to help progress to open access to books. So one of the recommendations is that the open access book should be addressed specifically within policies, that language should be simple in open access book policies, that there should be awareness about open access book at all levels. There should be consideration for funding mechanisms for open access books that do not involve book processing charges. And there should be enough engagement and collaboration with related stakeholders. So these are, for example, general recommendations. Then we have the specific recommendations, the common recommendations for research funding organizations, research performing organizations, national policymakers, which basically talk about considering rewards and recognition mechanisms for open access books, providing appropriate funding mechanisms, putting in place mechanisms that monitor these policies, again, developing awareness about rights and licensing, and contributing to improving the infrastructure for open access books. So I'm not going to go into the details of each of these. You will be able to read that. And I'm also not going to list here the stakeholder-specific recommendations. I'll give you the time to go and dive into it. However, what I will show you is a little bit about the knowledge base. In case you're interested in discovering yourself, what are the documents that have been used in preparation of the recommendations as well. So the knowledge base is a collection of document, policies, statistics, and transcript from interviews conducted. As I said, this was quite a lengthy process that lasted almost a year. And it is hosted by OAPEN, and it's also part of their Open Access Book Toolkit now. And to give you an idea, this was how complex this process was. We had a parallel phase of collecting quantitative and qualitative data through 2 different ways. And they all together were pre-analyzed and pre-coded and then added to the knowledge base. So all of this you can see in the knowledge base itself. There is also an instruction video on how you can use the knowledge base, which gives you an idea of what you can browse by, how you can filter things. You can select different stakeholder types you want to see the policies related to. You can select countries. So it's quite an interesting tool that you can use if you wish to see what other countries are doing or what other stakeholders are doing in terms of policies. And you can access it here or via this link. Again, we will share this presentation so you will be able to look at them. And we have all the reports on the methodology of data collection as well as the analysis report in our Zenodo community. And one final thing I wanted to mention is that this project is very stakeholder-centric, meaning that each of our phases was validated by community. So by validation, we mean checked and provided feedback by the community in different formats, from online events to peer review to surveys, because we wanted to make sure that nothing major is missing in the knowledge base. We wanted to make sure that the analysis had sense and that it was interesting and that it was useful for the community as well. And finally, we also had a check with the community to make sure that the recommendations are sound and that there is nothing that maybe is off or that needs a further organization of other additional events or feedback or anything like that. And we have another report. I know I'm talking a lot about reports, so I do apologize, but this is how it is at the end of a project. We have the validation methodology also described in detail if you're interested. And if, for example, this is something you would want to apply within maybe some of your projects or anything like that, it is quite a successful tool, as we found in our project as well. And I think with that, I am at the end of my 10 minutes.
Are there questions directly to Ursula or to the presented results? I posted some of the things that Ursula mentioned into the chat, especially the PDF of the recommendations and to the knowledge base. And I really invite you to look into it. It's very helpful material. So, questions. I didn't see any questions in the chat. I'll give you another minute to come up with a question. And maybe Johan has a question? No, he doesn't. Okay, then we'll move over to the next talk. And that will be from Leonidas. Leonidas is with OpenAIRE, and you probably know that OpenAIRE has been stemming from the driver project and was really aiming at getting data in a systematic way on what is actually happening in open science and open access in Europe. And there are powerful tools, powerful services around it. And we're quite happy to have OpenAIRE as a partner in the CraftOA project. And within the CraftOA project, one of the developments that we did was the OpenAIRE publisher dashboard, and Leonidas Pispiringas will present to us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Margot. Let me share my screen. Okay, so as Margot already said, I will present you the OpenAIRE Publisher dashboard, which we are building under the framework of CraftAway project. It will be based and hosted in the OpenAIRE Monitor service that we have already, and we provide dashboards for organizations such as institutions, research initiatives, and funders. Okay, first of all, the first question regarding when we come to the monitoring of the scholarly output and the research assessment process, the first question that comes always in our mind is why monitor? Why an organization should monitor the research output? We separate it in three parts. The first part is to know thyself, to identify the resources they use, the scholarly output in more detail, to identify and see the collaborations they have with other organizations, to see the visibility across the landscape, the research landscape, and also the impact of the organization. The second step is to understand thyself after knowing thyself in order to find pathways, gain insights, and also opportunities for collaborations and other aspects. And the third part is to position thyself in the decision-making processes of an institution, and also in the reporting part, and to find it also assists organizations to have a storytelling about the scholarly output and the uptake in open access and open science. The second question is why OpenAIRE Monitor? First of all, it's all about open science and open data. We have full coverage of open science that goes beyond publications and also to datasets, software, and also to other research products. We co-develop the metrics and the indicators in relevance and for the community. taking into serious account the feedback we get from all our partners and stakeholders. And of course, everything are fully embedded in the EOSC infrastructure, from content providers to the included metrics. So OpenAIRE Graph, let me, I put here a few slides about the backbone of the OpenAIRE Monitor service and the publisher dashboard, which is the OpenAIRE Graph. It's where we get the data and we build the publisher dashboard. The OpenAIRE Graph is a scientific knowledge graph. It's a collection of metadata that describes objects in the research life cycles and also relationships among these objects. We follow precision, depth, and processing workflows by having rigorous cleaning, deduplication, and enrichment processes for optimal accuracy of the output on the OpenAIRE Graph. We have enriched metadata links. We have research results that are linked to projects, to datasets, software. We have author affiliations, and also we provide classifications under fields of science and technology, and also on sustainable development goals. And also we have techniques in order to duplicate identification, in addition to all the curation tools we have for the OpenAIRE Graph. Of course, it is robust and open. We have maintenance and load balancing workflows and also backups. And the data we provide is open and transparent. It's provided under the CC0 license. This is a simple chart graph where we describe all the workflow starting from the left, where we have all the different data sources that OpenAIRE, a sample of the data sources that OpenAIRE aggregates metadata from large data sources such as Crossref, DOAJ, DataCite, ORCID, PubMed, and other large data sources to institutional repositories, publishers, and Diamond Open Access journals. After the aggregation, we perform enrichment processes, the duplication processes, and other cleansing workflows in order to produce the finalized product, which is the OpenAIRE Graph. And it has been used by the APIs we provide, and also the public graph dataset that we provide every 6 months in Zenodo, by third-party services, and also by the OpenAIRE added value services. One of them is OpenAIRE Monitor, and of course the publisher dashboard. From all those services, we get the user feedback, and having the user feedback, we also add it to all the workflow in order to produce every time better and more qualitative data in the OpenAIRE Graph, which is updated monthly. OpenAIRE Graph has been selected as the authoritative data source of data for the EOSC node in order to support the discovery, exploration, and recommendations of research publications, data, and software within the platform. So, our presentation today for the publisher dashboard. The publisher dashboard provides tailored metrics and insights for publishers of Diamond Open Access journals, in order for these publishers to monitor the scholarly production of the Diamond Open Access journals, the impact via the citations and downloads, to identify collaborations via project participations and also co-authorships. We have funding metrics to see which of the research outputs are funded. Benchmark metrics against peers. The publisher can see specific metrics for each of the Diamond Open Access journals. There are metrics that track trends over time. Of course, we are going to provide linked data. We're going to have publications and their links to datasets and software. And of course, we are going to have also a few metrics regarding the authors of the publications. A few words about the platform. We have user-friendly dashboards with interactive visualizations. There are exporting capabilities where you can download the data and the visualizations in different formats, filtering capabilities in order to see specific in the charts. You can browse all the scholarly output, all the publications that you see in the dashboard in our discovery service in OpenAIRE Explorer via direct links. And also you have partial editing of the visualizations. And you can also control how you are going to share your dashboard. You can have your dashboard at the category level and even in a chart level. You can have it public for everyone to see, restricted, that will be only available to registered and signed in members for the dashboard. And of course, there are also the private indicators that can be seen only from the managers of the dashboard. And all these are custom made and validated in one-on-one sessions with us. So the prerequisites in order to have a publisher dashboard. Of course, the data, the metadata of the publisher or the platform must be integrated into the OpenAIRE graph. This is done by registering and validating your Diamond Open Access journals or the Open Access Journal platforms via the OpenAIRE Provide service, and being compatible with the OpenAIRE guidelines. The compatibility with the OpenAIRE guidelines, apart from the fact that they provide the opportunity for OpenAIRE to aggregate the Diamond Open Access journals into the OpenAIRE graph, you can also have it as an entry gateway to the European Open Science Cloud. You are going to have improved interoperability as the OpenAIRE guidelines meet the latest IT and repository standards, with more contextualized content with relationships to other type of research outcomes, flexible by using different and improved vocabularies, and also embedded in the research the R&I ecosystem, as you are going to be aligned with open science mandates and standards, and also you are going to have support for well-established metadata schemas, such as WCORD and DataCite, and namespace abbreviations. And of course, it is your role to fairness, because if you are compliant with the OpenAIRE guidelines, then you are also fair enough. So the Open Journal Systems, the OJS, the most used platform for publishing Diamond Open Access journals. We have two plugins in order for the platforms to be aggregated into OpenAIRE. The first one is the OJS plugin for the JATS-XML format, and which supports the OpenAIRE guidelines version 4. It has been developed under the OJS.NET project in cooperation with OpenAIRE. Until now, the metadata validator service that we use is going to be updated to support this new JATS-XML format. But apart from that, journal managers that wants to be harvested in JATS-XML by OpenAIRE, they can do it by registering the Diamond Open Access Journal or their platform in OpenAIRE, and they can do it on request in collaboration with us. And we also have a Node.js plugin for the OpenAIRE guidelines version 4, which has been developed within the Craftaway project. And it can be used also by any publisher of Diamond Open Access Journal that uses the OJS platform to publish their journals. You can find all of the details on how to use the plugin and how to register in OpenAIRE in all the links that I provide. And if anyone wants any help, you are free to contact us to assist you in the process. So the status of the publisher dashboard, it's in the development phase. We have delivered a prototype during the summer by using the SRAC portal of scientific journals of Croatia as a pilot, which has been aggregated in OpenAIRE, and they are compatible with the OpenAIRE guideline version 3. We worked before summer on cleaning the aggregated metadata, such as fixing the publisher names and also seeing other issues in collaboration with SRAC platform. When we provided the prototype during the summer, we have received a feedback from Slack regarding the functionalities of the platform and also the data quality that we have in our metrics and indicators. And we're working on improving the platform and also the data quality that we have. Our next steps are to extend, and also while developing the publisher dashboard, to extend the feedback process to all interested IPSPs across the 3 projects at the beginning: Craftaway, DIAMAS, and Palomera, to the IPSPs that we get from these projects. So let me give you an overview, a quick overview of the platform. This is the OpenAIRE Monitor service. I will go to the publishers dashboards. I will select the Croatian Academy of Sciences and Arts publisher. And this is a dashboard where we have on the left the scholarly, the categories and the sections. For the scholarly production section, we have the open access publications, where we can see the scholarly production, the number of journals for the specific publisher, and we have metrics for open access publication trends by fields of science at level 1, fields of science level 1, and by fields of science level 2. We have publications by type. On the benchmarking metrics, we have the top diamond open access journals by number of open access publications, the top RPOs by number of open access publications, RFOs, the funders, and also the data sources. And open access publications by SDGs. On the funding section, we can see the project participations and the European Commission participations. And we can see a chart with the project participations by funder, with the number of the respective publications that has been published in a Diamond Open Access journal in this publisher. We have grant-supported publications by funder, by framework package for the European Commission over time. We have a few indicators which are currently in development phase regarding the fairness, where we have the open access publications by license type, the open access publications with and without CC license, with and without ORCID ID in the metadata, the open access publications by PID type. And we also have the impact section, where currently we have the citations and downloads. In the citations, we have the total citations and average citations. Trends by fields of science level 1 and 2, top RPOs, top diamond open access, and generally several metrics regarding the scholarly production and impact. And also we have some metrics regarding the downloads.
Leonidas, we need to come to an end. Otherwise,
yes, I know.
Sona won't be able to present.
I know. I have finished.
Okay, thank you. There's a question in the chat, and that is a very practical question. And which version of OJS supports the plugin that you mentioned?
They are supported through the latest versions from 3.2 and also the 3.4.
And all the developments that we do in the Craftaway project are mainly aiming at the upcoming versions of OJS, but there's a reasonable amount of downwards compatibility, but we're mainly aiming at the next release.
We're mainly aiming at the next releases, yes, and those two plugins support at least the version 3 of OJS. Version 3 and above.
Yeah. Are there more questions to the dashboard? and Leonidas. Okay, then we stay practical, and Suna will talk about the tool suite of the DIAMAS project. There has been, and you will probably talk about it, DIAMAS has been mainly aiming at the so-called non-technical sides of publishing. But as you all know, there is no clear distinction of what is non-technical and technical. So this is good. This is technical stuff, but it's mainly aiming at the other side of publishing, which is not just the technology. And Sona is our communication officer in Craft.OA and also at Operas, and she has the floor now.
Thank you very much, Margot. Okay, so let's dive right into it. I have the pleasure of showing off the latest DIAMAS deliverable, the tool suite. And before I go into detail of what the tool suite actually is, I will, sorry. Okay, now it works. I will just give you a bit of an overview of what that means in the overall ecosystem of services Craft.OA and DIAMAS are developing that will eventually be available via the European Diamond Capacity Hub, which you may have heard of if you are a keen follower of this cross-project webinar series, because if I remember correctly, it was presented, or the concept was presented in the very first installment of this webinar. Having said this, so what we aim to accompany IPSPs, meaning institutional publishing service providers, throughout their journey towards sustainability and publishing in general. And that means we accompany them via this whole infrastructure. And this infrastructure has several services that that we offer to them and that we develop through Craft.OA and DIAMAS.
When exposed to air, the name cesium comes from the Latin word.
I'm pretty sure that is correct, but that was not me, so I will just continue. Okay, so basically, where does the tool suite belong within our ecosystem of services? So if you are an IPSP, just let's entertain this thought for a second here. You may turn for first aid assistance to so-called capacity centers, which are basically the first line of aid towards institutional publishers. And then you may be guided through our, and by our, I mean the European Diamond Capacity Hub registry that is currently being developed within DIAMAS, through which you can access a forum and thereby a network of institutional publishing service providers. Via entering this realm of the Capacity Hub, you may also be able to stumble upon the Diamond Open Access Standard, which many of you probably have already heard of, and the self-assessment tools based on this Diamond Open Access Standard. And then you may or may not notice certain areas where you think, oh, I could improve this certain area. And to improve this, we will offer you trainings, plugins such as the ones Leonidas just presented, and this is part of the improvement services, the tool suite. We have other services that I will not go into detail about that right now to enhance the visibility of Diamond Open Access Journals, such as the Diamond Discovery App or the Publisher Dashboard, which was just presented. And we will also offer sustainability resources, but just keep in mind the tool suite we are talking about is for the actual improvement in terms of meeting the standards of the Diamond Open Access Standard that I have just mentioned. Okay, so how was the tool suite developed? So as you can just see by the bunch of names that just popped up on your screen, this has been quite a team effort. And I think quite a few of the people that have been involved in development as authors, contributors, and reviewers are actually here with us today. So just a brief shout out to this formidable team that has been coordinated by JISC, by Graham Stone, who many of you will probably know in particular. So as you can just see by the many, many organizations and people and nationalities and thereby languages involved in this development process, you might also take into account how many angles are involved of this. In total, this team has used roughly 200 existing resources in 11 languages that were suggested by the contributors themselves and the community to come up with this tool suite. And all of this was immediately translated into 3 more languages, them being Spanish, Croatian, and Portuguese. And more of them, this is a slight spoiler for the end, but more of them are to come. Okay, so you now know how it was developed and how it is situated in the overall context of our services. So what is the tool suite actually? The tool suite is a suite of articles providing high-level introductions to the diamond model and its different dimensions. And there's the catch that I have mentioned earlier. It is structured alongside the 7 components of the Diamond Open Access Standard, the DOAS, and the self-assessment tool that is itself based on the DOAS. So that means it covers areas as funding, ownership and governance, open science practices, editorial quality, editorial management, and research integrity, technical services efficiency, visibility, indexation, communication, marketing, and impact, equity, diversity, inclusion and belonging, gender, and multilingualism. And how does this all work? It will be available on a dedicated website that is currently in beta version, and I will share the link with you a tad bit later, that integrates the guidelines to meet these standards as well. And just to give you an example of how this looks, so for example, we have the area gender diversity. There is a small abstract that introduces you to the topic, a main text that I will show you on the next slide. And if you just look to the right of the page, there are also tags. That means it connects the topics to each other. And this is the next slide, which shows the main text. You can see there are related tool suite articles, so you can dive deeper into the topic by just going from article to article, meaning contextualizing everything you learn right away. And you will also see related guidelines and potential training materials that you can use that are currently being implemented as well as references. So the key takeaways of this. The conceptual core of the tool suite is the Diamond Open Access Standard, the DOAS, meaning we are really trying to evolve from just giving out a standard to establishing a standard by giving you, the community, the means to accomplish what we ask for in the standard. Then just kind of an announcement. So the tool suite is currently in beta version. It is available through the link that I have just put on the slide, and I will share it in the chat as well. Apologies. We have planned, or we are currently planning, a series of webinars that are specifically dedicated to collect feedback on the tool suite. So if you're interested in that, and we really hope you are, because we need your feedback, and it's all a community effort, please follow the project DIAMAS via the newsletter, via social media, so you are informed as soon as the webinars are announced, because we would love your take on this. And lastly, I have mentioned this as a slide spoiler. Translations are already available in Spanish, Croatian, and Portuguese, and that is great. But we welcome and encourage you to help us translate this into more languages, because the more languages, the more communities we reach, and the better for everyone. And with that, I would say thank you for listening, and that was my presentation.
Thank you, Sona. So as you can see, what is done in these projects is not just dumped on projects to communities, but it's a way to express the voices and needs of communities. And this is especially true for the Diamond Open Access Standard that Sona mentioned. And translating is, for instance, also a way to bring back feedback and say it doesn't really apply to our community. And then these standards can be adjusted to the needs of communities. And it's also a way to bring it back to your own people and helping those in your countries, in your language areas to become part of this Diamond Open Access community. And with that, I'm opening the floor to general questions now. We have 12 minutes left, but I think that is enough to get into a lively discussion. And you are free to go ahead, either in the chat if you are a bit shy or don't have a microphone, or raise your hands and make yourself heard and seen. And if we have no questions, I invite my co-hosts to add additional thoughts if you have any. So it doesn't need to be a question, it can be also an addition to what we heard. And there we have Pierre. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Margot. What I find quite interesting to have these 3 presentations in a row from the 3 projects is to show how they are very complementary to each other in terms of type of action. So there is one on policy recommendations, another one which is really technical, and the third one which is more on skills and competencies. And so it shows also, for me, it's a good example of how, if we want to promote, I don't say diamond publishing, but more equitable open access publishing, we should have a coordinated effort, not only between the different types of stakeholders, not only between the different projects, but also across the different types of action that we take together to push forward or to move forward an equitable models of open access publication. And it's a very, I think it's challenging, and it's quite rare to have a coordinated effort with, let's say, different types of or dimensions of action working together on different levels to move coherently towards the same goal. And I think that the 3 presentations show that or evidence that quite clearly.
Okay, then I have a question from Nancy. And Nancy is asking whether this is mainly referring to Europe. And while we have regional specifics of publishing, for instance, the way that typesetting is done or how books look, we probably have some global aspects, but I would hand over the question to Sona, but also to Pierre and whoever from the host would like to answer. So are these tool suites also useful outside of Europe?
Well, maybe I can start and then give the word to whoever feels inclined to elaborate on that. So if the question is if tools like the tool suite can be of value, then probably yes. However, as the tool suite is based on the DOAS and the DOAS was developed very closely with the European community, I would say for now the scope is focused on Europe. So I wouldn't go too far on that. It may be that tools like it, or tools like the tool suite. It's a bit of a hard to pronounce thing. That that can be useful, but I would be very careful to just use the same thing in all contexts. And I see Johan already twitching. You did unmute yourself, right?
Yes,
okay,
I did.
then I will give the floor to Johan.
Okay, you noticed that. Yes, I think those tools can be useful, and actually this is going to be part of a project that we have been awarded, a consortium of us, to look at the way in which diamond tools can be used on 3 continents and compare them in Africa, Latin America, and Europe, especially with respect to quality and training. That is what and also policy. So that is what we're going to do over the next 3 years. This is a project called Almasi. Almasi means diamond in Swahili. So we thought it was an appropriate title for this project. It's a project that will start in January and that will be presented at the same time as the European Diamond Capacity Hub. And so that's a project that's really going to see to what extent these tools can be used across continents, and what we can learn from them, especially Latin America, of course, has a much longer tradition in diamond open access than us in Europe, and I think we can learn a lot from them. So that is the 3-year project that will start in January with a number of partners, some of whom are on the call. Another aspect that we'll have to look at these aspects of how diamond open access tools can be used beyond our own project is the Diamond Alliance. You may have heard about this as well. This is an initiative that we launched last year at the Toluca conference, the first Diamond Summit in Toluca last year. And that has been enthusiastically adopted, shall we say, by UNESCO. And UNESCO is currently carrying out a consultation, a worldwide consultation, to see to see what form that Diamond Alliance should take going forward. And that consultation will have some initial results, we believe, by the Cape Town Summit in December, and then later on we will see what shape it takes in 2025. But this is really out of our hands. We of course will collaborate with UNESCO, and I think a number of international partners will. But that is another way of making sure that diamond is taken up worldwide and aligns itself worldwide.
Okay, then we have a question from
your question, I think,
yeah.
Nancy. But
yeah. So I need to rush us through because we have one more question, and I would like to give because it's a very interesting question from Katarina Wiberg from the National Library of Sweden. And she asks how diamond open access publishers are actually looking at our results. And maybe I can start from the Craft.OA project that I'm coordinating. We have the luxurious situation that many of our partners in the project are publishers themselves. So they have been chosen because they know the pain points. And I'm saying we, because we at Göttingen Library also run a publishing house. So this is one thing, that we have diamond publishers present in these project consortia. But maybe Pierre would like to mention more on the feedback that we receive from other diamond open access publishers around our projects.
It's too difficult for me to summarize because we collected a lot of feedback on the different components that we developed in DIAMAS. So if someone else would like to give a concrete example, it would be perfect. Maybe Sonar, I don't know.
And while Sonar thinks, I can tell that also in the DIAMAS consortium, we have several partners that are also running publishing services themselves. And those are diamond open access services. And there's Graham. Maybe you want to give an answer.
Answer. Because my name was mentioned, so I feel duty bound to speak. Just to say, we're running at the moment a number of what we've called DOAS-a-thons. So you can either love that expression or hate it. But we ran the first one yesterday with diamond open access publishers from the UK and Ireland, where we went through the self-assessment tool, and it was also the first opportunity to tell them about the tool suite articles and the guidelines. It was a really good session. They were only small sessions, but it was we were still going after about an hour and 20 minutes. The feedback from them was excellent, very engaged. Again, looking forward to using these things. They'd already been in, they had questions, they already have told us what we should do next. So it's purely from a UK and Ireland perspective, but there is a French DOAS-a-thon coming in the next couple of weeks, and I know there will be one in Croatia, and I know there are others planned as well. So the feedback's coming, and largely it's been very positive. It's been, and I saw something in the chat as well about, we're looking forward to using these tools. It's great to have something. So, but we all feedback is good, but there is definitely engagement happening.
So Suna has raised her hand.
Yeah, I can just give a brief glimpse into the newest feedback we got for our Craftway Tech event that was conducted in September. So overall, usually the engagement, and this is, I think, true for DIAMAS as well, is always very high because the need is there. So overall, the interest is always very high. The engagement is very high. If we have something like the DOAS that is rather finalized already, so that has gone through multiple stages of consultation, of review, and I can only speak from a German context here, and I think, Margot, you probably mentioned that as well, so we're both probably speaking about the same experience. All the feedback I got was that it was extremely helpful that we have something like that, that something like that has finally been developed. And of course, we all know there can be updates, there can be improvements to absolutely everything, but this is a given. So I think the main so if we had to boil it down to one main takeaway about community feedback to the work of Craftway and DIAMAS, and this is obviously simplifying a lot because there are a lot of outputs and the feedback is very different in terms of the exact feedback we get and nuanced. But overall, I would say it's positive because there is a need, there is a desire for these kinds of things that are being developed. And I think overall, it is very much appreciated that what we do is build this with the community through consultations, through several feedback loops. So in the end, mostly the feedback with the final product, so the output of the projects, is mostly positive. Again, it's very simplified, obviously, because we have a lot of outputs. But if you want a general trend on that, then I would say from the experience I've had in presenting these outputs, that's it.
Okay, so we've reached the end of our webinar. And that probably means I need to close this webinar because now it really turned very interesting. Those are wonderful questions that you posed. Oh, no.
Actually, we do still have a bit of time, Margot.
Ah, okay. So then because I saw that people are leaving, that's probably because it's 4 o'clock. So I'm wrong. Forget what I said. Go ahead, pose more questions. And if I can add one thing, when we drafted our projects, we looked at it and it was that there was quite a large share of consultation and feedback loops with communities. And if you want to simply run a project and pull it through, then this is usually time consuming and you never know what comes out of it. But when it comes to Diamond Open Access Publishing, if you lose touch to the community that is actually doing it, you're lost forever and the project will be useless. And I think these consultations and also the DOAS-a-thons show that this was the right way forward to involve communities right from the start, because we run these projects from the communities for the communities. So, more questions? I don't see any questions. So either we start a late afternoon sofa session or we hand over to Pierre.
No, just for a quick information, I shared in the chat the link to the announcement of the launch of the Almaty project, but in combination with the launch of the Almaty project, there will be the public launch of the European Diamond Capacity Hub that will uptake the outputs of DIAMAS and CraftOE. So it will be in presence in Madrid on the 14th and 15th of January. The registration form is not open yet, but at least you have the announcement to save the date if you are interested to join us in Madrid in January for the public launch of the EDCH.
Is everybody fully aware what this European Diamond Capacity Hub is about? If not, simply post a yes or no into the chat, and then we can maybe explain this concept a bit further, because this is the opportunity of having all the experts on board. So Philippa said she would like to hear more about it. So is one of you prepared to simply pull it out of the head? The European, yes. Okay.
Yeah, I could share my screen even, if that's useful.
That would be helpful.
See if I can do this. I have to send a request. Sharing is not turned on. Request has been sent. Multiple presenters can share. Okay, let me share the Google document that I have for this purpose. Can you see this?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Great. So, but Pierre will say more if I forget something. So the European Diamond Capacity Hub will be launched on 15 January 25. The day before, there will be a public event for the Almasi project. So that's how we combine both projects. It will be hosted by FECIT, a funder in Spain that is very much engaged in Diamond Open Access, coordinating 500 journals in Spain. It will be held at a museum, so you really have no excuse not to come, if only for the museum. We will, of course, there will be a number of official presentations, but there will also be workshops to discuss with the community, with you, how we should organize this. So the idea of the European Diamond Capacity Hub is that of we also see in other regions like AJOL in Africa, which is African Journals Online, hosting about 500 journals in Africa, and Ligue Américaine also hosting hundreds of journals in Latin America. And the idea is to do the same in Europe with the European Diamond Capacity Hub, basically in response to the request of the Diamond Action Plan and of the Open Access Diamond Journal Study. We are setting this up in order to align, strengthen, and reinforce the Diamond Open Access landscape. The idea of the European Diamond Capacity Hub is especially not so much to serve journals directly, but to serve diamond publishers and diamond capacity centers, to align them so that they in turn can better serve their journals. There will also be in this European Diamond Capacity Hub something that is close to the heart of Margot, namely a Diamond Discovery Hub, where all the Diamond Open Access journals in Europe will be highlighted and presented. So there's a number of services that we will be offering in this European Diamond Capacity Hub. The Diamond Discovery Hub is one of them. I could give you other examples. There will be training, there will be a community forum, there will be so there is a number of resources that can be used. This is also, of course, in the context of a lot of political support for Diamond Open Access, and we hope to be funded. We are already funded by CNRS and by INR, the French research organization CNRS, and the French funder INR. And we hope to be funded by more funders and libraries and institutions in the future. But if I tell you more today, you will have no reason to come to Madrid, and I want to avoid that. So I hope you will come to see us. Pierre, maybe you can say something.
No, it's all good. Thank you very much.
So please come. We need your help in thinking about this. I'll stop sharing.
Okay. Yes, there is a mentioning in the chat. There are financial issues for ITC countries. So is there any hybrid option. I mean, what we definitely try to do in these projects, but also in the overall framework of Diamond Open Access, is to record as much as possible and to make participation as much as possible, because this is not just about content that you can access for free on the internet. It's also of participation in agenda setting and defining standards. So I don't know, do we have any opportunity? Is there any live stream or something like this planned for the Madrid event?
We are still working on that, but it's very likely that we will do that. But we also, yeah, we would really like to have a lot of people come. But we don't know the technical details yet of the venue. So, but we will keep you posted when we can.
So Vladimir, I mean, I don't know, this is not a real help, but maybe it helps a bit. So stay in tune, and hopefully there will be a hybrid option to participate. I don't know whether we have fellowships for attending the conferences, but maybe, I mean, some national funding organizations and also some governments are realizing that Diamond Open Access is really a way to change the publishing system that has been heavily biased against the global north and against the richer countries and against the mainstream of science, against English-speaking journals. So Diamond Open Access is really about broadening the scope and inviting people. So maybe, hopefully, your own national government has some opportunities, and it would be great if we have more people attending and not just the usual suspects. Margit, do you want me to read out your question, or do you want to raise it yourself, or a comment? Because I think that's an important comment.
It's more a comment in the end. Yeah, I'm from the library, and I don't know if it's with other libraries, but there is a lot of need for financial support for Diamond initiatives, platforms, journals, books, publications, and I think your work is really useful in all contexts. So thank you all for all the 3 projects, and yeah, it's really good. Thank you.
We have been in the luxurious situation that the European Commission didn't ask us to solve the main problem. And the main problem is that we have a reward system in research and science that really favors the commercially organized sector, and that we have been driving a huge part of scientific publishing into the situation that they have to beg for support and they have to go around and collect funds, whereas they should be having free time to focus on the editorial work and content production. And so this won't be helping all issues, but we can definitely move a bit forward. And maybe Pierre has more insight on this. And I have a hand over.
Yes, I just wanted to react to this very important remark from you, Margit. My initial reaction would be to say that paradoxically, so it's a good news that your mailbox is full of requests for support, particularly financial support, because if the needs are not known, it's difficult to support people from whom you don't know what they need. So it's for me, it's really good news that from all over the place, from all over the community, there is an expression of and request for support, including financially, because then I think it gives an opportunity for the different stakeholders, the policymakers, the funders, and the institutions to make strategic decisions where they want to put the money, basically. But as long as they don't know the need, they cannot make that decision. Now that they know the need, maybe they will move maybe a bit forward into making more strategic decisions in terms of funding.
And I think there is a lot of money in the system currently.
Exactly.
But that's the main point, which budget for which and where can we save on other hands or other sides for other, yeah. So maybe in future there will be more money around due to unsubscribing. That's my vision, but yeah, it's a slow but steady system. Yeah.
Ross just pasted an important link for unsubscribe. But we also face the situation that much of the open access sector has been, well, not fully hijacked, but sort of occupied by the large commercial content providers. And for them, of course, it's natural that they think they can use up all the library budgets and nothing is left for the diamond sector, because you've been living on nothing. You can live on nothing forever. And therefore, I'm fully with you, Pierre. It's good that these initiatives also raise their voices and that we find ways to fund them and absolutely move them out of the beggar situation, because this doesn't work. If those who are anyway doing the voluntary work and trying to run participatory models of journal publishing, that they should be going around to beg for money. That's a totally weird situation. More comments, more good ideas. Okay, so we shouldn't be watching ourselves silently for the next 15 minutes. And if there are no objections coming up, like from Sonar, then I will start to move us out slowly from this webinar. This is giving you the last chances of coming up with your questions. And if you are too shy or you're struggling with the chat function of Zoom, then please don't hesitate to reach out. Check out one of the websites, find out people that you have been, that you know or that you are familiar with, and reach out and get in touch. And also we have some opportunities of newsletters. And here I have my next speaker, Niels.
Sorry, I'll just make it very brief, Margot, while you're wrapping up. I just thought as Palomera is coming to an end, and this probably will be the last sort of joint webinar, to thank our sister projects and for being part of this. And I really hope that we will see more of Diamond and books in the future, and hopefully so we can do more things together. I think that could be really exciting. So it's not the end of open access to books, just because Palomera is ending. It's really a stepping stone to a lot of more activity, I would say, and have a close look at the recommendations and all the research that has been taking place. It's really interesting to see a lot of new pathways opening up for books. So just wanted to add this, and thank you for hosting the webinar today.
Shall I respond? Yeah, I think it has been a very fruitful collaboration. And when we set up these cross-project webinars, we immediately realized we shouldn't set up artificial borders by publication types, saying, oh yeah, you're just doing the books and we're just doing the journals. Because one thing is, if you are working in scientific publishing, you know that there are overlaps. So there are book-like journals and journal-like books. So there is not a totally clear distinction. And while these publication types have their specifics and they should be addressed, they nevertheless overlap heavily with people, with publishers, with funding policies, with research reward systems and research assessment. So it's good that we think it as one and not say, this is the book projects, those are the journal projects. And I think these cross-project webinars have helped. And if you are running projects in your own countries, we really recommend this format because it enlarges the communities and also makes people think out of the box and across disciplines and across publication types. So with these words, I will close the webinar. We can stop the recording and we thank you for your participation. We will be copying the chat. There will be some repetitions, especially in the beginning, because I pasted the same things again and again into the chat. And with that, I'll wish you all a fruitful afternoon or morning or whatever is the time in where you are placed.
Thank you very much, Margot. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.